it's Jen, the Liberty Lion, and there's some noise in the background. I don't know if you can hear it or not. I have my AirPods in. If you do hear it, that's my young one downstairs playing piano. It's not that loud to me, so I'm thinking it's probably not that loud to you. So there's some things I want to talk about with this new Trump administration, but it's the same stuff I've been talking about for years now. And I have a little bit more information I want to put together with it. And what that is covers a whole variety of things, because it's like a set of dominoes, and when one falls, the rest of them fall. And so it's really hard to just take it apart, especially the most important pieces, and just talk about them one at a time. And then it's difficult for the listener, the audience, to put it together in their minds. So I have to sort of go through it and touch on several things that are all a part of this. It all comes together, and these are, again, like the most important aspects of citizenship and what the United States is and what it is not, and who we are in relation, and what jurisdiction is, and jurisdiction being the relationships between different types of people or different citizens. So let's get started. So I went to the law library, and I called them first, and I said, hey, do you have the old laws for the Republic of Texas? And they said yes. And I said, am I able to look at them? And they said yes. They're kept behind the counter, so you have to come and ask for them. We give them to you, and you can look at them, and then bring them back when you're done. So I went down there a couple days later, and I talked to the lady, and she gave me the books. So I had a stack of books about this big. 2 of them were probably a foot high, just 2 of them, right? So the other 3 were in volumes. They didn't have a lot of interesting stuff in them, but the first 2 did, especially the first one, because it showed the progression of becoming a republic, and then becoming a state, joining the union, remaking, because originally Texas had a republic constitution, and then they had to rewrite it before they joined the union. There were some issues with it, and so they had to rewrite the Republic of Texas Constitution before they could Texas could join the union. And then after they joined the union, they had another constitution called State of Texas. Okay, so a lot of people, we've been taught through school, and we believe that when the states ratified the federal constitution, that it turned the whole state into a new state, and that the original republic constitutions were done away with. And that's not true, according to what's written in the organic documents that were created at the time. And if you read them and don't think about what you've been told to see or what you've been told to understand, think about what you're actually seeing on the paper, something different comes to light. Okay, it's not the same thing that we thought it was. It's not the same thing we were told it was. We were taught it was in school, and has been propagandized to us for at least 100 years now, or almost 100 years, since at least the Federal Reserve was created. And then I think before that, probably since 1912 at least. And Napolitano has said they were trying to find ways around the Constitution before the ink was even dry. Of course, he's not speaking literally. Maybe he is. I didn't take it as he was. So reading the book, what I did was I took a bunch of pictures, hundreds of pictures of the stuff that was written in the book, and then I brought it home, and now I can read it. So it goes along with a lot of other things I've been telling you. So let's start with some very general stuff in the Constitution. Okay, so I have a copy of it here, and I want to go over the preamble, but I want you to look at it like this. We the people of the United States means we the people of the federal government, we the people of the military. So we do all these things, and we do them for the United States of America. So you have two entities here, and you have one working for the other one. And if we look at the Articles of Confederation, now you all know I've talked about this extensively, that the Articles of Confederation are when the states got together as the United States of America, and they created an agency to work for it, the United States. And that as the United States of America, they retained all their rights, sovereignty, freedom, independence, power, and jurisdiction that they did not give to the United States. So the states are definitely in charge of the United States. They're supposed to control the United States. Our states have failed us miserably, I would say, because they're not controlling the United States. And if they are, they're not controlling themselves. The states are not collectively controlling themselves or each other. They're getting together and agreeing to everything and doing all these things. So like federal taxes. If the states created a federal government, and the states are supposed to give money to the federal government, so the United States of America are the free, sovereign, and independent states, and they're supposed to give money to the United States for doing whatever it is that they do, the things in the Constitution, then why are people in the states, like state citizens, paying state taxes and federal taxes? The federal government were supposed to tax the states, and the states were supposed to tax the people, but it wasn't supposed to be both these entities taxing individual people. Okay, and I read the Constitution a little bit differently as far as taxes go, and I've gone into that. So another part of the federal Constitution is at the very last part of it. I think it's like Article 7. Yeah, Article 7. Done in convention by the unanimous consent of the states present the 17th day of September in the year of our Lord, 1787, and of the independence of the United States of America, not the United States. Okay, so in the Articles of Confederation, it says each state retains its sovereignty, freedom, and independence. And then the independence of the United States of America. So the states are the United States of America. Whereas in the Articles of Confederation, it says, whereas the delegates of the United States of America in Congress assembled gave powers to the United States in Congress assembled. And only certain powers, and those are listed in the Constitution, and then the states ratified the federal Constitution. Because that gave each citizen a right to say, do we want to join or do we not want to join? Okay, so for Texas, this is a current jurisprudence manual, the 3rd edition. She's playing. It says, one general, it's Texas jurisprudence 3rd edition, one general, subsection 1, statehood generally. Texas, now we're talking about Texas, and then the form of government that the people created for themselves is Republic of Texas, and then the state allowed the federal government to come in, and the relationship between the state and the federal government was state of Texas. Okay, so thinking about that, we see Texas was admitted as a state of the Union on December 29th, 1845 by a joint resolution of, remember, Articles of Confederation, the United States Congress, not the United States of America, but the United States, because they ratified the federal constitution to create state of whatever, right? And the Convention of the Republic of Texas, capital R, with the lowercase r, republic, thus becoming a state on equal footing in all respects with the original states, although the government and laws of the republic were held to be in force until the state government was organized on February 16, 1846. Hold on now. There's more. I've noticed a lot of people will recall the first line of a article in the federal constitution and pay no attention to every word after that. So they recite the things that they've been told and they remember, but then they don't know the rest of it. So, 1846, the former governmental system was abrogated insofar as it conflicted with federal authority, and the Constitution and laws of the United States were enforced in Texas immediately on its admission as a state. What does that mean? That means, and it's not how they've reimagined it and reinterpreted it and propagandized it today. We're talking about how it's supposed to be and how it was meant to be then. Okay, so I have this. I've showed this. It's in my, what do you call it, communities section in my YouTube channel, where I've posted this map. I know it's hard to see, but I have something circled here. It says federal lands and Indian reservations. And then it's got these parts here. You can't really see them, but they're the federal areas. Let's see if I can find one. Fort Hood here is a federal area. Down here's Randolph. What's that? Brooks, Laughlin, Amistad, Fort Davis National Historic Site. Okay, so we have federal areas inside Texas, and we have the Republic of Texas inside Texas. So we have civilians who are not citizens of the United States, and then we have citizens of the United States inside Texas on federal lands, because citizens of the United States are federal people. They're of the United States, not of the United States of America. Okay. And that's also expressed in this other thing that I found, the Laws of the Republic of Texas, in the book. And the only laws that I could really see, just generally skimming through the book, were the creation of counties and the sale of lands. And there weren't any laws like you have to, register your horse, you have to register your carriage, you have to pay insurance, you have to do all these things, you have to pay land taxes. I didn't see anything like that for the Republic of Texas. Okay, so I only saw a few laws for Republic of Texas, and then once the state of Texas was formed and the federal areas were starting to be dedicated, which we'll see in this thing I'm about to read here, the joint resolution for the Republic of Texas 9th Congress, a joint resolution between United States and Republic of Texas to create this new state. So a lot of people say, well, the Constitution says you can't have a state within a state. That's not what it says, okay? What it says is that once the federal constitution. So you have to ratify the federal constitution before it takes place in the state, right? So it has to be ratified. Once it's ratified, that state is created. The state of Texas is created through the ratification process. So the people said, yes, we want to have this state inside of our state. So we are going to allow state of Texas, the relationship between the Republic of Texas and the federal government, the state of Texas, to exist inside Texas, inside our state that we created. But after they ratify it and that state is created at ratification, there's no more states. So there's not like a telescoping effect. They can create the state of Texas, but then they can't create the state of Texas, or the state of the state of the state of Texas. They can't do that. They can only have this relationship between the military government and the court system and the Republic of Texas, and both exist inside Texas, right? Because Texas is the territory. Republic of Texas is the government of the civilians, not federal, the Texas people. And the state of Texas is the relationship between the two of them. Okay, so then I have here a copy of the VS 101, which is the Texas application for birth certificate. And my point in this is that there's a legal state that exists today that didn't really exist at ratification. So this is, this is VS 109, not VS 101. Like I said, I think 101 was the instructions. But it says, we're talking about legal states, okay? So legal states are not exactly how the founders, or I hate calling them founders, or even fathers. I prefer to call them the deputies commissioned by the states to write the federal constitution, because that's technically what they were. They were paid to do something. They were given a commission to do something, and they were supposed to do that thing and that thing only. And they were paid to do it, so that is the only thing they could do. But then we ended up with this progression through time, this change through time, and now it's become a legal state. We're required to have birth certificates and legal names and all this other crap. The information you provide on this worksheet is used to create your child's birth certificate. The birth certificate is a legal document used to prove your child's age, citizenship, and parentage. That's because that's now a requirement to join the military, right? Your child will use the birth certificate throughout his or her life. The state of Texas safeguards. So this is the birth certificate for the federal government to use to prove your age, citizenship, and parentage, so you can be a member of the military. Okay. So let's look at this other document. 9th Congress. I didn't print this out. It's a picture, so there's a lot going on here. It says the 9th I'll put this in the community, or I'll post it somewhere where y'all can see it. Extra session, joint resolution. This doesn't have a year on it right away. Giving the consent of the existing government to the annexation of Texas, not Republic of Texas, to the United States. Whereas the government of the United States, the national military government, that's what the United States is. We're not talking about the United States of America, because Texas is already in the United States of America. So we're talking about allowing the federal government to come in and buy lands, eminent domain, in Texas, and that the Republic of Texas agrees to establish a relationship with the federal government inside Texas, and they can reserve some rights. And we don't make the feds comply with the laws of the Republic of Texas because it's a different form of government. Even though it's like a Republican form, I guess, it's also in a way a stratocracy because it's Article 1 and 2, these people have to have or have had military service. And that goes back to ancient Rome. In ancient Rome, the people in their Congress had to have so many years military service to prove their loyalty. Okay, so I believe that's what the deputies who wrote the federal Constitution wanted, and they wrote it in here as part of the qualifications, that they were using that because they didn't have birth certificates back then. They didn't have, proof of age, proof of citizenship. So what did they do? They made you serve for a number of years before you could go in and be a politician and make laws or defend the country and run the military. You had to prove yourself. The people in Congress now are those civilians that are making all that money and all that stuff that, like Trump and them. Trump doesn't qualify for that position, not as commander-in-chief. None of them qualify to use the federal Constitution or to sit in offices created by the federal Constitution, because most of them, there's maybe the exception of one or two, don't have the required military service. So having a birth certificate doesn't eliminate the qualification to have been in the military to sit in Congress. It doesn't do that. I think it's just the proof that you are a citizen, so you can join the military, and then at some point in time later you can sit in Congress, the federal Congress. Okay, so whereas the government of the United States hath proposed the following terms, guarantees the conditions on which the people and territory of the Republic of Texas may be erected into a new state to be called the State of Texas and admitted as one of the states of the American Union to wit. Now, again, I just showed you the current law and the Texas Jurisprudence Manual, the 3rd edition, that says the Republic of Texas was abrogated only insofar as it conflicted with federal authority. So the federal Constitution comes first, but mainly even only on federal lands. Because the military, if the federal Congress is supposed to have military service, these are military positions, and they are positions of the United States, and they are in control, and this is Eisenhower's stuff, came out during Eisenhower's administration. The federal military Congress, using the federal Constitution, is supposed to make the laws for the federal lands, and then the rules and regulations for the federal people on the federal lands, the military. So for taxes, back then, taxes were an agreement between the states and the federal government, and they were for the federal people on the federal lands. So if you brought goods onto the federal lands, you paid a tax on those goods. So today that still happens. On a Navy base, there's a Navy exchange. On a Army base, there's a PX. I don't really know what that stands for. PX. But the goods are taxed when they come onto the military post, and the military people on the post don't pay a tax when they purchase things on the military post because the tax has already been paid. That's because the federal Constitution allows for the taxing of things coming onto the military post. And let's say you are in 1800 and you join the military and you need to supplement your low military pay. The military makes hardly any money. And you need to supplement that. So you ask your commander, hey, can I have this plot of land over here? I'm going to grow some crops and raise some animals. And he's like, yeah, sure. But, when you take this stuff off post, you have to pay a tax on it. It's going off post. So we have to replenish the land and, get our fair share. And that goes back to ancient Rome too, which I've talked about. The lands in common were sometimes given or sold or lend, like really leased to a poor person who needed to make money to feed his family and himself. And so the tax was actually, you could look at it kind of like a lease payment or a rent payment, where when he grew crops, he would pay a portion of that back to the government. So if there were weather anomalies that destroyed all his crops and he had no money, he wasn't expected to pay a tax because he didn't have anything to tax, right? And that seemed fair, because today, if you lose your job but you're able to keep your house because you had savings, you're still expected to pay the tax on your property. Seems a little unfair though, right? I have to use my savings to pay my property tax even though I don't have a job. So I got to pay property tax, income tax, sales tax, federal tax, state tax. It never ends. And that's not even the way it was intended to be. You have to pay a tax just because of the fact that you are using their dollars. Okay, so that was the tax issue. And if you use the trees to build furniture, a portion of that went back to the Roman Empire. Okay, a portion of the yield. Whatever you used from the land, you paid it back. You paid a portion of it back. And that's the way I believe the federal Constitution was written. The federal Constitution was like, hey, we're going to do some stuff in the state. We're going to tax the stuff that comes off the post, the military post. We're going to tax the stuff that comes onto the military post. If we build a port and we're shipping goods in from overseas, we may tax that. There are some things that the states explicitly agree to or agree not to do, like coin money. And that's specific to the state, where it says no state shall, this, no state shall this, no state shall that. And there's just a few of those things. Everything else, it appears as though that was supposed to be done for the federal people on the federal lands. Okay, so again, it was abrogated only insofar as it conflicted. So the federal people in the federal lands and the republic people off the federal lands, the civilians, when they conflict, there's a jurisdiction to resolve those conflicts, and that's the state of Texas. The feds have precedent. The feds have like first power, I guess you would say, that they are the top law. Okay, they win. So if you go on a military post, you are definitely going to be following federal laws. Off a military post, there's really not supposed to be any federal laws unless you're in the military and you're traveling off a federal military post on duty from one military post to another. Now, you guys in the military, you know this, and I'm saying it, and you're like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense. Civilians who've never been in the military, they have a hard time with this because they've never been there. They don't understand it. Their mind doesn't work that way because they've never had to live that way. And that's why they're so easily taken advantage of by these corporations and these people who claim to be able to use the federal Constitution to do things against them that they can't actually do. So if the enacting clause is of the United States of America, they can't use the federal Constitution. If the enacting clause is the United States, then it's for the military, and you never see that enacting clause because it's not for civilians, it's for the military. Okay, so resolved by the Senate and House of Representatives of the United States of America and Congress assembled. So you see here, there's two places already. Whereas the government of the United States hath proposed the following terms and conditions, which is the federal Constitution. And the United States of America and Congress assembled, that Congress doth consent to the territory properly included within and rightfully belonging to the Republic of Texas. So, okay, so remember, the United States of America is free, sovereign, and independent with all rights, powers, and jurisdictions not given to the United States. If the United States of America are the civilians who are supposed to tell the military what to do, other than the Constitution, which are the things the military has to do, and the states have to all agree not to interfere with those things, equally across the board, all the states. But where do they get the money to do it? Not from each state individually, because how are they gonna agree that they all agree to how much money goes? So they have to assemble as states to collect the money and give to the United States to do the federal works in the Constitution that they said they wanted them to do for them. Remember, we the people, these are the military people of the United States, we have to do all these things for, because we work for them, the states, which is called the United States of America. So to be in the federal Congress of the United States, you have to be in the military, and you have to have had 7 years military service for representative, 9 years military service for senator, and if you want to be president, you have to have been, could have been in the past, you could have been in and gotten out, you could have retired, you could have gotten injured, you disqualified because you got injured and you were released, but you had to have had 14 years. That's why you can be natural born or currently in, so you can be out of the military but have been 14 years a military person, or you can be in the military but you have to have 14 years, have to have in 14 years of service to prove yourself. Okay, remember, they didn't have birth certificates back then, and just because they do now doesn't mean that they no longer have to qualify. No, they still have to prove their time. The founders, deputies, thought it was important to prove yourself, prove your loyalty, do your military service, and then you can qualify. Get your birth certificate so we know, because the populations are increasing. We got to have a way to know who's qualified to be even in the service. Okay, and remember, the independence is of the United States of America, not the United States. May be erected into a new state to be called the state of Texas, with a republican form of government, to be adopted by the people of said republic by deputies in convention assembled, with the consent of the existing government, in order that the same may be admitted as one of the states of the Union. And be it further resolved that the foregoing consent of Congress is given upon the following conditions, and with the following guarantees to it. First, said state to be formed subject to the adjustment by this government of all questions of boundaries that may arise with other governments. Okay, so the federal government was going to ensure the boundaries. So the United States was going to ensure the boundaries, and they also did that with the counties. They just made sure that all the counties' boundaries didn't overlap, because if you're a military officer and you're telling your people go to the most northwestern section of such and such county by this river, you need your men to be there. And they need to be able to look at a map and be there. And they need to know what they're supposed to do there, who they're fighting, and all these things. So how many people and what kind of camps to set up and what kind of arms they need, who they're fighting, right? So the federal government was going to step in and help lay out those boundaries. And the Constitution thereof, with the proper evidence of its adoption by the people of the said Republic of Texas. Now, it's been brought to my attention by someone very well liked and followed to my attention personally with who ran for president, that I need to take a look at the actual voting that happened in the state for the Republic of Texas people when they voted for the state of Texas. Okay, so I've been looking through that and I just can't make the connection. If anybody has any information for me, please let me know. To be laid out before Congress for its final action on or before the first day of January 1846. Okay, now second, this is the lands. Okay, the federal government only has military posts originally, right? Military posts, not parks, not national parks, none of that, just military posts. That's all they were supposed to have, and some docks, which I assumed are like Navy bases and places where they can get equipment and supplies in, even if it's not an actual Navy base or Navy post. It's still nationally owned or federally controlled. Okay, so military posts, and this is for all the states. I just use Texas because I'm in Texas and I gather all the Texas information from the law library. So Article 1, Section 8, Clause 17, there's one sentence, but there's two parts. And Eisenhower in his reports has laid this out. It's clear. The federal areas, the military areas, are islands in the states. They're like islands in the states. These are federal lands inside the states. They're occupied by federal people called citizens of the United States, and they're controlled by the people at the seat of government using the federal Constitution. What Constitution are the people of the United States and Congress assembled using? I don't know. They reference one, the Constitution, our Constitution. Which one? It could be the Articles of Confederation, because in 1846, this book, this book is from 1825 to 35 to 47 is when this book is. The dates on the years on this book. But it has a copy of the Articles of Confederation in it. So apparently they thought they were still important enough to print inside this book. Now the whole thing with the Civil War, that's a whole nother story, okay? Okay, so Article 1, Section 8, Clause 17. This is two different jurisdictions and two different lands, two different type lands. To exercise exclusive legislation in all cases whatsoever over such district not exceeding 10 miles square as made by session of particular states, and the acceptance of Congress become the seat of government of the United States. Okay, that's the first part. That is exclusive legislative jurisdiction. That means the federal government has 100% control over the seat of government. Okay, 100% control over the seat of government, but not so in the states. The federal government does not have 100% control over the federal lands, the islands, the federal islands in the states. They don't have 100% control. They have constitutional control. They have constitutional control, but that's why we have a state of Texas, because the states reserved some of their rights on the federal lands. Texas state reserves some rights, Oklahoma reserves maybe some different rights, Kansas reserves some rights, Colorado, Utah, Idaho, California, Washington, Oregon, Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, all the states reserved some rights or no rights, but they had the right to reserve some rights over the federal lands, like serving process or making arrests, things like that. So if a federal citizen, a citizen of the United States, came off a military post and committed a crime and went running back, he wasn't protected by the federal government against the crime he committed. He was able to be collected by the state people, the state authorities, brought back to the state and stand for his crime, right? So here's what it says. Here's the rest of it. Okay, so the federal constitution. Okay, so it says, this is the second half. So you had the seat of government where the federal government had 100% control over it. And then you have the federal areas in the states. The federal areas inside the states, to which some states retain some jurisdiction over those federal areas and those federal people, like when they committed a crime off the federal lands. And it says, and to exercise like authority, not exclusive legislation, but like authority, not even legislation, authority, like authority over all places purchased by the consent of the legislature of the state, like Texas, in which the same shall be for the erection of forts, magazines, arsenals, dockyards, and needful buildings. Okay, we now have Gulf of America. If you haven't looked, Google has changed it. And it also doesn't say the United States of America off the front of it, of the map. It says it just says United States. And I do have some maps that say United States, but most maps say the United States of America or United States of America, not United States. But that's what they want you to believe, and you don't know any different. And then we raise our kids up in this system, and we all say that we're citizens of the United States, and well, the founders didn't say that. They didn't want it that way. That's not what they wrote. They didn't write anything like that. A lot of people by this point have brought up to me, well, the 14th Amendment says, yeah, the 14th Amendment says if you're a federal person on federal lands, you're subject to the federal jurisdiction, the jurisdiction thereof, which may be more stringent in Texas than it is in Oklahoma, because the states reserved some rights. Some states reserved some rights, some states reserved other rights, some states reserved no rights. Some states reserved all rights. Some states reserved more rights, some less rights, some few rights, some more rights. Okay, they're all different. And they all could be the same. I haven't looked at all of them, okay? So, for the building of forts are military posts. Posts are magazines, posts are arsenals, posts are dockyards. Okay, needful buildings are like post offices. Now, when you hear post office, what do you think? The place where you go and get your stamps and put your mail in the box. And the lady comes and gives you your mail in your mailbox. Well, that's not what the constitutional post office was. And that's not what the constitutional post roads was. There were roads on the military post. There were roads in between the military posts, and there were roads from the post to the seat of government. There were offices on the military post. So you can have an administrative office on a military post. You can have the Combined Arms Center. You can have garrisons, you can have all these different offices on military posts. They have libraries, they have schools, they have universities and colleges, war colleges on these military posts. I've been on them, I know. So you have post being military offices, and you have post being military roads. These are federal roads, okay? So let's see what the Republic of Texas paper says. Third, new states of convenient size. Nope, that's not it. Here we go. Second, said state, when admitted into the Union after ceding to the United States, all public okay, here's a list. It's a list, and then it's qualified at the end. Okay? The qualification are those things related, or it says pertaining to public defense. So when it says all public edifices, it's talking about only those ones pertaining to public defense. When it says all fortifications pertaining to public defense, barracks pertaining to public defense, ports pertaining to public defense, harbors pertaining to public defense, navy and navy yards pertaining to public defense, docks pertaining to public defense, magazines, arms, armaments, and all other property pertaining to public defense belonging to the Republic of Texas. So all of the things, all of the military that the Republic of Texas built, whether it be docks, harbors, ports, barracks, forts, public edifices, everything related to public defense was now going to be under the control of the federal Congress, the Congress of the United States. Shall retain all the public funds, debts, taxes. So we're going to take on your taxes too. Your funds and your taxes related to public defense. And the residue of said lands after discharging and said debts and liabilities to be disposed of as said state may direct. So the Republic of Texas has to dispose of some of its lands to help pay the debt. And then that goes through the United States of America into the United States. Liabilities become a charge upon the government of the United States, not the United States of America. So because if they said the debts go to the United States of America, then they're just saying, well, the debts are now going to be back to the states, because the states are the United States of America. So they're saying that the debts are going to go from the states to its agency, the United States. And that's why they needed to coin money. And that's why they needed the money to come in from the states, the gold and silver to come in from the states to the federal government. Whatever they have planned by enlarging it and usurping their power and pretending like the United States is America when it's not, whatever their master plan is, I can only guess. I have guesses, but it really doesn't do any good to talk about them if they're just like whims of mine, which they are. So I'm not going to read the rest of this because you get the hint. You got a clue now. You know what I'm talking about. You know that the federal government, for the legislatures and the president, are for they have military offices. The Congress are supposed to be members of the military. That's the proof of their loyalty, that they have 7, 9, or 14 years. As you go up the ladder and you're given more and more responsibility and more power, you have more and more years of service, because senator means senior. And so you would be required to have more time in service, because more time in service means more loyalty, more dedication, more confidence in you that you're not going to turn spy, right? And current law, third Third edition, Texas jurisprudence, statehood. Republic of Texas was only abrogated insofar as it conflicted with Article 1, Section 817, like authority on federal lands, right? So you're not a citizen of the United States, neither am I, because I'm no longer in the military. Maybe you were in the military. Maybe you're in the military right now. If you're in the military right now, you are a citizen of the United States. The DD 214 was explaining this to my 14-year-old child, and she completely understands it. She gets it. So I was telling her that back just a few years ago, people were saying that your DD 214 was not really a release of service, that it was a document saying that you could be called back, and you're looking at it, those people were looking at it in completely the wrong way. What it was saying was that your DD 214 does not make it so that you cannot be called back in case of a draft. It doesn't release you from the obligation of future service. That was a mistake being made by people, that they're like, I have my DD 214. I already did my time, as if they had been in prison. That's what it feels like sometimes. So you can't call me back and tell me to do more prison time. Well, your DD 214 says that your contract ended and you were released and now you're a civilian, but we're going back to war, and so you're being drafted. As long as you still qualified, you have to be the right age, you have to be the right height, you have to be the right weight, you have to be able to see and hear and understand things, and so you have to be physically qualified and mentally qualified. So that's what everything is. That's what it is. That's the Republic of Texas still exists. It's still good government. It's the government of the free people of Texas. It's not a legal state. This is another thing a man in Congress asked in 1865. He said, Mr. President, what is this legal state? Is it a state created by the people of the state, or is it a state created by the men here in Congress? And it is a state created by the men in Congress, the federal Congress, to create, things like the birth certificate and stuff like that, so that these men can qualify to join the military. As we get more and more sophisticated as a country, we have more and more technology, we have more and more secrets that we need to keep. And so even if you are a citizen, were you born here or not? If you're born here, you may be given a higher status as far as your secrecy level, your classification level. Whereas someone who's from another country, maybe they won't get that high classification level, secret or top secret or whatever. So the legal state, I think the intention of it may have been good, but so was the federal Constitution. And sometimes these things they go bad because we're misinformed or miseducated. We don't read. They work us so that we can just keep the lights on and the bills paid. And you have to work 2 jobs nowadays just to keep up with everything. And, people don't have time to read. They don't have time to think. Sometimes sitting and just thinking about things gives you a lot of knowledge that you didn't have. So that's why some of us others are here to help do this and to help clarify things and re-educate and re-inform without all of the lies and the deceit and the propaganda and stuff. So you heard me say earlier that Trump doesn't qualify for office of the president. He doesn't, because he doesn't have 14 years residency in the United States. Now, if you look at the Google Maps now, it says that all the states are United States, but they're not. The United States are the federal lands. So when was he ever on federal lands living for 14 years? When was he ever a commissioned officer or a person in the military, active duty? He never was. And there's only been a handful of presidents that were. Washington was was the first one, and he kind of set the stage for the whole thing. He kind of set the stage for the qualifications for presidency. He had the time in the military, and he was out of the military, and he was living as a natural born citizen, living what he said was the quiet life on the Potomac River as a private citizen, not in service to his country. He was leaving service to go live the quiet life as a private citizen. Well, private citizen is natural born citizen, not under any contract or obligation to serve anyone. But then when he was called to be president, when they decided that he was going to be the first president, they used his experience as qualification, because they felt that his experience set the rule for future people who would be loyal and who could be trusted, and they used his experience for the qualifications. And then the other people that helped along during the Revolutionary War, their qualifications were used also. So, okay, so there it is. I hope you enjoyed this video. It's kind of long, but I went over a lot of information. I proved to you, I think, a lot of things. Everything I said, I hope made sense. It makes sense to me. It makes logical sense. It makes common sense. And the rest of everything else in the Constitution, when you look at it this way, including all the amendments, even the ones post-Civil War, they just make sense. It all works together. Not in the way that they want the civilian population to believe, but in the way that the deputies who wrote the federal Constitution intended it to be. Okay, so like, share, subscribe, try to, talk about this stuff with your friends. Some people get really jealous and they're like, hey, I came up with all this information. And if you want to do that, that floats your boat, go right ahead. It's easier just to send them a video where I could show them everything, but whatever makes you happy. So sharing the information is paramount, really. Thumbs up and comments and all that. New subscriptions is great for me. It gives me incentive to keep going with this. But, some people are just a little strange. They don't like to share information like this, and unless they, like narcissists, they want to act like it came from them. That's okay too, as long as we end up in the same place, which is a more free country, okay? And I'll see you guys in another video soon, probably be in a couple days. I have some things to take care of, okay? Have a good one. Happy Washington birthday, or President's Day, whatever it is, on Monday.